And we're live. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the Mojo Show, where we talk everything real estate. I'm your host, Joe Mortgage.
And I'm Copa Joe Mortgage. I can't say that right again, so I'm Cup of Joe Mortgage.
Maybe you need another cup of Joe to get.
I'm already starting it out, Joe. It's already starting. The blooper reel is here.
This week's episode, we are tackling another big mortgage myth. Are banks really the best place to get a mortgage? A lot of people assume that going straight to their bank is the smartest move when it's time to buy a home. But is that really the case? We're breaking it all down today for you, separating fact from fiction, to get to the bottom of this myth that is out there so much. But before we get to that, of course, a little coffee talk with the Joes. I understand we have to, everyone just kind of pause what you're doing right now, because I understand that, Joe, your son had a fantastic meet last weekend. Tell us about it.
So, we've talked about my son and my daughter both powerlifting, right? Yeah. And I got to brag about my daughter when she went in February to her state meet. Now it's his turn. So last Saturday here in Texas, out in Abilene, we had Hunter's state meet and 3 other Argyle boys. So 4 total boys made it to state, which is an accomplishment on its own. So there's 6 regions in the state of Texas, and it's called Division I. Well, that's 5A and 6A schools together.
Wow.
So it is a big, big meet. And I'm so proud of what Hunter did, making it 1. But he didn't have the day in squat that, he wanted. He was calling for his personal best of 680 pounds, and he missed that. But he got 640, which is a fantastic way of doing it at state. But he got a personal best on bench press and on deadlift. And just his mindset, him enjoying it, he's 18-year-old senior. He's about to graduate. He's going to college for powerlifting. So I know we kind of talked about that, I think, on a show.
Yeah. Very
proud of it. But just to see him cheering on the other competitors in his weight class from other schools, there's 3 of them that were kind of just standing there talking to each other. One in Lovejoy, one was out of Denison, and the other one, I can't remember where it was, but it wasn't even a school anywhere close.
Yeah.
And, they were all pitching in to help each other. They were all talking each other up. They were yelling for each other.
That's awesome.
And, in competition and in things that you do in sports, a lot of times you're wanting to compete and beat somebody. You don't cheer them on.
Right.
And in powerlifting at state and even at regionals, the camaraderie these kids have, and the joy that they have to see people do the weight. So one of our other guys, Aaron Gomez, is one of Hunter's best friends, set the state record in squat and bench press, and just the amount of people that came over to support him and yell for him and cheer him that were lifters. Yeah. Was amazing. So I really want to throw it out to the Texas High School Powerlifting Association. You guys do a great job of teaching these young men that you can compete, you can push yourself, but it's also okay to push your competitor and, back and forth to make it a better competition. So great job to Texas High School Powerlifting Association. But the best thing ever was Friday. He went to school and he wore a Texas High School Powerlifting Association shirt, state champions, 1995, April 1st of 1995. It was my shirt when I was in high school, and he wore it to school. And you got to remember the 90s, right? We didn't have good taste in color. So you had the yellow neon, pink neon. It's one of the ugliest shirts I've ever had, but I've had it for 30 years.
Amazing. Your wife never let you throw it away, huh?
Well, I just never did. It was just me. Tina used to wear it for a sleep shirt. And so he wore it to school. He wore it to weigh-ins. We got a picture in it. It's something that I did not think I was going to get emotional about.
Yeah.
It was just the last 4 years watching him powerlift and watching Anna come into it and Aaron. and just being a part of it. Big Ape Athletics, if you're in the North Texas area, Big Ape Athletics, David Munns does a fantastic job of getting these younger kids understanding how to do it, technique, and things like that. And then Argyle ISD and the powerlifting team, is just a fantastic thing. So look it up. Again, Big Ape Athletics for anybody that's in the area that's looking to get into powerlifting or even just strength training. So
nice shout out to them. Very good. And that really speaks to the integrity of those kids that are competing, against each other, but yet rooting for each other as well. So that's fantastic.
Well, I know we're not here to talk only about powerlifting, so I know we got a heck of a show today, and this one hits home for me. I'm excited to get into this one, Joe. But guys, before we do, the listeners that we have out there, we want this to be more interactive. We want to have some participation. So please ask questions or share your thoughts based on any of these myths, based on any of these topics. And hey, there we go. We got Mike Brownstead already popping in with some things.
Coffee is hot and good. And
I love it. Mike connected with me on Facebook. I want to get to know who he is a little bit more, but good morning from Coppell. That's where I'm at, Mike. So glad you're listening.
Fantastic. Good stuff, folks. Well, let's jump into the main content of today's podcast, and that's in lieu of banks. Are they the best place to get a mortgage? This is definitely a myth that is out there, and we want to be able to kind of unpack this a bit to be able to help you listeners know really what is going to be able to put you in the best financial position in whether purchasing a home or refinancing. Joe, there's really 3 different players that are kind of in the game here, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple more out there, but the big ones, that you're talking about, I think that's what you're saying, the big players, right?
Yeah, like, there's banks, there's retail lenders, and there's mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
Why don't we, so that everyone understands, I mean, Grant, you and I do, but the average consumer out there does not know the difference between them. So let's kind of go through first and break those down before we go any further.
Yeah. So, one that I want to talk about first is, the myth is banks are the best place to get a mortgage. And, you have your banks, you have multiple banks out there that do them. You have your big ones, you have your Chase, your Wells Fargo, your Bank of America's, but you also have those smaller ones like Prosperity Bank and different ones in the area up here that, have mortgages. We'll get into why some of those aren't the best. But then you have your retail lenders. What a retail lender is it's basically they have their own underwriting. They have some of their own internal, and then they have their warehouse lines that they fund all the loans from. So, they have a little bit more overhead than banks because banks are able to diversify their portfolios. And then you have mortgage brokers like Joe and I to where we don't do our own underwriting. So, we send it to our investors do the actual underwriting. So we're choosing those investors that we're shopping around for you. We have lower overhead than retail. And we don't have any other products like a bank does. So we are only concentrating on you and your actual loan. And that's the only way that we make money. So we don't service or anything. So that's where some of the big things that are different from a retail and a bank is retail doesn't have any other products, but they might service some loans. And they might have a servicing book that is also bringing in income to their company, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. Because if your portfolio is not performing, then your rates are going to go up because they need to offset that expense, in the manpower. So in a retail location, that happens sometimes. And then in the broker world, the nice thing is we don't service them. So, we're only about getting your loan closed and keeping that relationship because we don't buy leads. We don't do things like that. We're a referral type business. And Joe and I, Joe, we talked the other day about how many real estate agents we talk to and how many other partners we talk to to do our business. And, that's where that concentration, truly to somebody, in my opinion, going a route with a professional broker like us, or even I've got some buddies that are professional brokers. It's more about what can we do for you on any type of loan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where, and I'm going down a path, Joe, so shut me down when you want to.
I'm about ready to.
In retail, they kind of change the way that they make their money based on the different types of loans.
Yeah.
And we don't in broker. So the myth of going to a bank is not the best, in my opinion. It's just, we have so much more that we can concentrate to help a client directly than what, in my opinion, a bank can do.
I agree. And I guess to simplify it into an analogy for everyone, the way I've always looked at it is that banks are more like your general family practice doctor, and brokers like Joe and I are more like the brain surgeons, right? We specialize in just that. The banks are going to be more of your general family practice doctor that does everything. They do checking accounts. They do loans for your car, right? And they do mortgages, and they do CDs and all these different things. So in doing that, they're not focused solely on specializing in one thing like us, like Joe and I are. And not only do we specialize in one thing, like retail lenders do as well, right? But we take it further by having more of a relationship based instead of a transaction based, right? There's some of the big box, retail lenders out there. I'm not going to name it, but we all know they're based out of Detroit, where I'm from. And I'm not going to say it because realtors, I don't want you to cringe when I say that word, but it's
what, Detroit or the other box?
the big box retail lender that's out of Detroit. And I've known people who have worked there. I almost worked there. I didn't. I bypassed and went to a broker, and I'm so thankful that I did, because everyone I've talked to, that has worked there, and that it's transaction based.
Yeah.
Right. Here is more relationship based on
when I started in the industry, we were a call center, and that was all transaction based. So those bigger companies are more like call centers, and that's kind of what you're talking about. But Joe, you were talking a lot about kind of the differences between the banks and us. That's what we've been going on. But why is it that we have more flexibility than a bank? Because I think our clients don't understand that. Is in your opinion, why are banks not always the most flexible when it comes to getting a loan?
I feel that it's, at least my viewpoint, is that they don't offer a lot of different things, right? They're limited in what they offer as far as the type of loans. So
Right.
if you have a unique situation, if you're self-employed, like I was talking with a client yesterday who is a bartender, and she's paid 1099. You can imagine that's very little, though. The amount per hour, majority, at least 3/4 of her income is tips.
Yeah.
Right. And if that's not reported on income tax, right, how do you still qualify that person? So there's bank statement loans that we have, right? We were talking yesterday with our buddy Sean Hammond, who we had on the show about a year ago, about purchase renovation loans, VA renovation loans, right? Purchase a home and it needs updates to it, before moving in. Maybe it's a new roof. The kitchen needs to be gutted, bathroom, piping, whatever. You can have those renovations put into your mortgage as a part of the purchase. So these are very unique things, but we're able to offer these more, instead of just your, shoebox fit all, one size fit all kind of situations that banks have, right?
Yeah. Well, I did work for a bank for a little while. There was 6 years of my life that I got to learn the banking side of it and also the mortgage side of the banking area. The flexibility that we have is because we only have one product to do. It's a mortgage.
Mhm.
And so we're going to find investors that are willing to invest with different types of income streams. Where at a bank, in my opinion, they're not as flexible because they have other things that bring in, income. So they don't have to take on that same amount of risk, and it's not in their portfolio for their shareholders.
Mhm.
So, they'd rather go with credit cards, bank accounts, savings accounts, financial planning, and things like that to make other revenue versus looking for, and not all self-employed people can't get a loan at a bank. That's not what we're saying either. But if you're a self-employed person, you're also trying to write off as much of expenses that you have. And we don't go off of gross receipts in lending on self-employed like you do with a W-2 that's before taxes are taken out of your W-2.
Mm-hmm.
So we go off of your net. There's some things that we can add back in, but that's where banks, they don't take on that flexibility of making, looking for those products for those type of clients. So that's where we have that, that openness to go after it.
I think as well, banks, the whole underwriting process and everything takes so much longer than we take, right?
And why is that important, Joe? Because I don't think our viewers understand we went through it, right? How long it takes to get a loan, but why is it important for the timing to be able to get a loan done?
So it could take on average between 45 to 48 days to close a loan on average. Now, can it be shorter? Yes, it can. But on average, 45 to 48 days to close a loan with the bank. That is really too long, especially in today's market, right?
Yep.
You need to be able to close a loan under 30 days, right? To be competitive because it's when you put an offer in on purchasing a home, it's not just the amount, okay? And this is, again, is where you need a good realtor. Don't go at it alone. You need a good realtor to negotiate for you and that, to be your advocate, because when they put down 45 or 60-day close time, the listing agent and the sellers, they're going to look at that and be like, no, we need to be out of this house in the next 3-4 weeks, So it's a part of the negotiations to be able to come in, not only with a strong offer, a good offer, but how quickly that can close. Yeah. So it could determine whether you get your offer accepted or not.
Well, we had a couple of real estate agents on our show over the past year, right? And with that, we've talked about, their pre-approval letters, what they look for. I can't remember which episode it was, but we had a couple of really good agents on, and we talked about that pre-approval letter when they're going through them. And when they see a banks that they haven't worked with or an LO that has not, worked with them from a bank, those go to the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And it's because of what Joe was talking about, is that timing and, the things that they're not sure if it's going to get done. And it's just because there's so much red tape sometimes, in a banking approval process that I have a couple of really good friends that work at Chase Bank as loan originators, and they do an awesome job for their private client services, people. And it's because those are the wealthier people that have more money at the bank.
Yeah.
But, not all LOs are set up to do a great job at a bank, and they just, try to push it through without knowing how to set them up. Mm-hmm. So it also depends on who you're working with there too.
Any realtors that are listening in right now, out of the 2 people that are listening to the show, I always joke about that, but I would like to hear from you. I mean, Grant, we've heard from other realtors, over the years as far as the podcast, but if you're listening right now, if you have offers come in from a bank, as far as the pre-approval, right, comes in and it has a bank name on there, or it's a more familiar lender or a broker, which one would you, if you're going to rate them, right, where would that bank pre-approval land in your rating? drop the comments down below if you would. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, and I've got to apologize to Mike. He says we've met here at NXT. Mike, I apologize. I would love to shake your hand again. We're having an event April 3rd, I believe it is. I'll send you the invite. We're having another CE class. So just wanted to give that shout out to Mike Brownstead.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about, I have a seminar I'm doing tonight, and I'm going to use this actually as an example. Because when I first bought my home, my first home that I ever bought, right? I wasn't in the mortgage. I wasn't a loan officer like I am today. And so I didn't know any better. And there was a lady who, her daughter went to my daughter's school, and we drop our kids off at the same time. And she had her uniform on from the bank, right? And she helped me I just was like, I'm looking to get a mortgage, can you guys do that? She's like, actually, I do mortgages. I'm like, oh, fantastic. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what process, anything. To make a long story short, on the closing day, I get to the title company. I had to come up with an additional $1,500 on the spot because she didn't do her job right? And I'm trying to call her. My realtor is sitting there with me, and he's shaking his head. There's nothing he can do, right? I mean, that's not his. And I'm trying to call her. No answer. For the next 3 days, I tried calling her. No answer. Ghosted me, right? And she knew she messed up, right? And it's just that personal attention isn't there, right? It's a transaction. And I honestly, Joe, I don't know how you got into the industry, but that's how I got into this industry. Because I knew at the time, as a financial professional that I was, my level of customer service would blow her out of the water. And I could do so much better than her. And that's when I became a loan officer.
There's a lot of stories of people that got into the industry. Tyler was the same way, doing a VA loan. So, it's amazing to hear that story. But we did get, Mike did share,
Mike, thank you so much.
Yes, please. Using a lender is a big factor. He prefers local lenders who answer their phones, right? Yep. So the big thing about that is, again, your bank loan originators, if they're good ones, they give you their cell phone number and that they answer them on the weekends. But there are very little loan originators that work for a bank that I believe answer their phones on the weekends as much as we do. I'm not saying they don't, but as much as we do. That is a big factor for real estate agents. I don't know how many I talk to on the weekends, Sundays, Saturdays, the evenings too. I deal with clients. I was doing a pre-approval at 11 o'clock on Sunday night because that's when I got back and I was able to get back to my computer from the powerlifting meet this weekend. So, that's where a big difference is for our real estate agents. And like Mike is sharing there, that's a big part of it, is why banks are not ones that they usually look at too.
Yeah.
So, Joe, we talk about, those three different types. We have brokers, you have retail, and you have banks. Mm-hmm. If banks aren't the ones that are the best for you, what, in your opinion, what is the right lender for you? How do you figure that out if you're a client?
So the best lender for you really is the one that fits your goals. Okay. Do shop around, right? Shop around. And as we talked about in the last episode, which you can go to our YouTube channel to watch that show, the Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast on YouTube. You can go watch that show. One of the things, the main focus of the last one is that the interest rate isn't, the lowest interest rate isn't always the best loan for you. Okay. So when you're shopping around, I'm not saying shop around for the best interest rate, right? I'm saying shop around for what is going to fit your goals, right? We saw last week that an interest rate, a lower interest rate with one lender, well, that lender had more expensive PMI than the other lender, right? So knowing it, again, don't just look at the interest rate or the APR as we talked as well, right? But shop around for who is going to fit your goals and needs to put you in the best financial position.
Well,
That's the one.
I agree with that. I think another thing is also, the quality of the service that you're going to get.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say we're the best rate, because anybody that says they have the best rates, all they are is transactions.
Yes.
I am about helping that client understand. So I do video calls. I've got one here at 10 o'clock with a client, a pre-approval. I'm doing a video call to go over the numbers with them, make sure we're getting the payments where their budget will do them, make sure they understand the purchase power that they have, talk about any of their other things and their options. But I take that time, and I'll take, an hour, phone call over video chat. I'll take, time to do a video and send it to you so you can reference back to it. So make sure you're getting what you want. Now, if you're somebody that just wants a text message, hey, got this, here's your loan numbers, and you're fine with that, that's great. So find the people that work best for you, and get into understanding what are the other things that they're going to do versus just give you, hey, you're pre-approved, because anybody in the mortgage industry can say, hey, you're pre-approved. But if they don't do those extra steps, find somebody that's willing to teach you if that's what you want. If you just want somebody to leave you alone and just get the loan through, those are out there too. So
I think, Joe, we need to get in touch with Mike Brownstead, because he's popping some really good comments. And I think we need to have this guy on the show is what we need to do here, because here's two things. Mike, I thank you so much for listening in, first of all, and posting some of these comments so that people see it's not just us saying this. You as a realtor, Mike, are stating this as well, that if a borrower isn't qualified, what plan are we going to put together, right, to assist them to get there, right? So that if it's not today, maybe it's 6 months from now or 12 months from now, right? Because the goal is to be able to have them accomplish the American dream of owning a home. How are we going to get them? Do we end up just telling them that, hey, sorry, you don't qualify, best of luck, in continuing to rent? But what is the plan we're going to put together to be able to get them there? Is it a little bit of credit help? Is it a little bit of, saving more money for that down payment closing cost? How are we going to be able to put them in the best financial position if today isn't the right day, right? And as Mike says as well, best rates, but highest fees. Be careful of this, folks, because Mike hit the head of the nail with this one, right?
Yeah.
So,
and the one thing on that last one that he was talking about was, what are you building out a plan? That is huge for us here. It's not always a credit, thing. It could be, okay, hey, you're paying $1,200 a month in rent, and I can see that your savings is okay, but it's not there yet. I'm going to also talk to you about that during this call, because I want to make sure I'm budgeting you correctly. And maybe it's, hey, we need to maybe have a little bit more overtime to get that qualified to where you want to be, and make sure that you can, afford it. So it might be building out a plan. We need 6 more months of overtime to increase because it's declining from the prior year. All these are things that we look at. So that's why it's different, with a broker, in my opinion, especially somebody that's been in the industry. I've been in it for going on 25 years. Joe, I know you're not there yet.
You're an old fart, man.
Huh?
You're an old fart. 25 years.
I am.
Wow.
But that also doesn't mean I know everything in this industry, and that's why this industry is so wonderful. I did. My kids, neither one of them are going into this industry. One wants to be a doctor, one wants to be a lawyer. Okay, fine. But this industry is so amazing because it's always something new or something else going on, and if you accept that, it's a fun and wild ride at the same time.
Yeah.
And dealing with clients, that's my passion. I know we're at that time, but choosing the best fit for you depends on your situation. But talk with multiple people if you need to. But if you find that one, don't be afraid just to say, hey, I know I want to work with Joe, or I want to work with, Joe, the Mortgage Dreams, right? Just make sure you're fitting it best for you.
Right. So really a takeaway here, our banks, are they always the best place to get a mortgage? You've got options. and it pays to explore them. So if you have any additional questions for Joe or I, or want to get in touch with us to chat further about your loan scenario, right? You can definitely reach out to us via email. Joe's got the email addresses popped up there for us, so that you have those on the ticker. Feel free to get in contact with us, and be more than happy to go over your scenario and build a plan for you, right? One that's going to fit your needs and goals. Next week, we're going to continue on in our series of busting mortgage myths, because there's so many of them out there. So tune in next week at our usual time, Wednesday, 9 a.m. Central, as we cut through all of the noise and bust the myths commonly heard out there. Next week, we're going to be covering self-employed people can't get a mortgage. What a myth that is. We're looking forward to busting that one wide open. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Really do appreciate, Mike, all of your comments, posting that below. Really appreciate it so much. If any of you tuned in at the end, or you want to catch the whole episode or some of our other episodes, feel free to go to our YouTube channel, The Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast. And while you're there, be sure and hit the subscribe button, because we are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers. And hey, every like, comment, and share helps us reach more home buyers just like you. So before we close out, any last words or nuggets of advice for our listeners, Joe?
Thank you to everyone that tuned in today. And I know I went off track, but that's just the norm for me now. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and appreciate you, Joe, for everything you do.
I'm Joe Mortgage, and that handsome guy with the beard over there is Cup of Joe Mortgage, and we'll see you next week.
Mr.